I'm Liberty Cabbage, and I'll be reviewing chapters 5 and 6 of Loud Era by Michelle Mao. I have another graphic novel. This one is Fun Home by the lesbian cartoonist Alison Bechdel, who's probably best known for the Bechdel test. It's called a family tragic comic on the cover. It's a great slice of life comic about the author's family, her experience growing up and going to college. All the characters are extremely well developed. It's kind of like reading an author's diary or something like that, where there's just a lot of personal stuff going on. The artwork's great as well, so if you like the slice of life genre, this is probably one of the best comics there are of that. I complained in a few previous reviews that the characters in this comic are really underdeveloped, and unfortunately, Mao chose to do a kind of silly break from the story where the characters go camping and drink, and it doesn't really do much. For Eddie, we find out that he's really an idiot when he gets drunk, which isn't very significant, and Joseph is just frustrated about being crippled, which we already knew. So the chapter really does nothing to enhance our understanding of the characters' personalities. It is pretty funny though, especially the parts with Eddie. It's just really ridiculous how he acts, and his lettering is digital when he's drunk, and it just makes it seem even more ridiculous. But in general, the chapter felt like kind of a waste of time. I was getting impatient for it to end so I could get back to the main story, and I really would have liked to see something a bit more in depth with at least one of the characters and learning more about their personality. This entire chapter is outdoors, so I was expecting a lot of detailed nature scenery. Unfortunately, though, the backgrounds are pretty basic. There are a couple pages where the characters comment on how beautiful the scenery is, when really it's pretty basic and dull. And there's a sort of dissonance there where the characters see one thing while the audience sees another. So those pages would have been a lot better if the scenery really was very detailed and more painting-like. In general, there are a lot of pages with close-ups of the characters and these kind of brownish stick trees in the background that don't get a lot of detail. And it becomes very repetitive throughout the chapter. And while the characters' facial expressions are pretty good and they're consistent, the comic would have benefited a lot from more wide scenes, wide shots that really just show off the nature more and really push Mao artistically. It would have helped her practice backgrounds and show off her skills a lot. So it's kind of a waste opportunity. One issue I saw too is the heights of the characters seem inconsistent a bit. Definitely Eddie and Clarabelle seem like gigantic sometimes, or I think Marie and Joseph can be like tiny. So I wasn't really sure like exactly how tall they were, and that was a little distracting. So it's something to keep in mind. The chapter so far focuses on Aggie, Clarabelle, and Leon, and it's a big improvement in the sense that a few characters are actually getting developed instead of having a whole bunch of underdeveloped characters. And as I mentioned before, the relationship with Clarabelle and Leon is the strongest part of the writing, and it still is here. And Mal manages to make it seem kind of juvenile and innocent, but also very authentic and intense. And she manages to never really make it seem cheesy or like it's just dramatic for the sake of being dramatic. Um, so it's definitely great stuff, and it's probably impossible to read the comic and not be very interested in what happens to those two. So great job on that. This chapter is a gigantic improvement over the last one, and there's probably more detail in the backgrounds here than there are in the entire first 5 chapters combined. The visual storytelling is also a lot better. I particularly like page 6, where the buildings are shown going from worse to worse. And it's great how you can tell what's going on just by looking at the backgrounds and the characters' facial expressions. Um, and the theater is also done really well. There's real movie titles from 1919 on there. Just a lot of little details like a donate to the troops jar for World War I, and like an ad for 10-cent triple feature. And while details like that aren't really important for the story, I think they add a lot in just making the setting seem realistic and putting you in this sense that you're really looking at in 1919 there. And it helps too that there are a lot of like background characters and period cars and just different buildings and things. So there's definitely a lot of effort being put into this chapter. And also, I think the characters are better here as well, more consistent. The coloring's improved, and great facial expressions. So it's clearly an evolution from the previous Loud era, and it's nice seeing that it was able to get to this point. Chapter 5 is probably Loud Era's worst chapter, and Chapter 6 is probably its best chapter. And I was really surprised at how much the quality changed. I think this comic's a good example of what a creator can do when they really push themselves to improve and just try to put out the very best comic they can. Scoring the two chapters together, I give the writing 4.5 stars out of 5 and the art 4 stars out of 5 for an overall score of 4.5 stars out of 5. And I think in the future the comic could deserve 5 stars out of 5 if the quality level in Chapter 6 continues in the long term. Thanks for watching.